We often think of tequila as this trendy or new product to the market, but tequila has so much history. Tequila production goes back over 300 years, and there are very few ruins of the original distilleries that made tequila way back then that are still standing. But understanding this history is very important to understanding how tequila became what it is today. There are still some examples of that ancient history still in use, and you can see that with this right here.
So this big stone is kind of what we're doing here. This is a tahona, and we're gonna learn all about why this is important in tequila production and what makes it such an important integral part of a really well-made tequila.
And a tahona is a very large volcanic stone rock wheel that is used to crush cooked agave to make tequila. And originally it was pulled by donkey or mule in the olden times before modern machinery was invented. And while tahonas are still in use today, these tahonas are pretty rare. It's not every distillery that actually has one, but luckily for me, the distillery I went down to visit had one of these in use for their production. But alright, Louis, what is this tequila brand that you went to go visit and see all this cool stuff? We went down there with Volcán de mi Tierra, and I got to hang out with some guys that you probably know. Lucas, Chris, Doug, and the legend that is Long Island Lou. We got to stay at the Hacienda La Gavilana, which is the family that owns Volcán, their family's ancestral estate. This estate has been in their family since the early 1700s. And after we got settled, I got to hear directly from Santiago about this incredible place.
The property was built in 1704. My family purchased it in 1774. So 5 generations in the family. It lived through the Mexican independence, the Mexican Revolution. All the haciendas in the region here around Jalisco were producing what was then called vino de mezcal. So we have the original title from 1774. We have a notarized document with a number of plants we had in the ground in the 1800s. No? So we all produced this vino de mezcal, today called tequila, that's become very popular all over the world. My grandfather was born here. The Mexican Revolution came. He went to live in Guadalajara. These properties were then converted into what is called ejidos today, which is basically a usufruct of the land. And my uncle was able to recover the property in 1989, and I would say gifted to his father that hadn't returned since he left in the early 1920s. No? Moreover, many years later, my uncle signed or finalized the deal of the NAFTA agreement here in Hacienda La Gavilana with a bunch of people from the US, Mexico, and Canada. No? It's a place of union. It has a dear place in my heart. My grandfather is buried here. My aunt is buried here. My grandmother is buried here, and many other people that are right beneath my bedroom over here. So, a true special place. It's near to our distillery, and so it's a special place, and I hope everyone can visit it at some point.
It's a beautiful estate in the countryside of Jalisco with a wonderful view of the volcano, which gives the brand its name.
Every time I see that thing, it takes my breath away. That's so fucking crazy. And every time I see this thing, it takes my breath away too. Hi, Doug.
Me or your...
Yeah, you. No, you. I was pointing at you.
I thought you were holding this in your pocket.
No, I was trying to point at you.
I was like, that was cool. That was pretty cool. This is pretty cool. I don't know if it takes my breath away, but...
They also used to produce tequila at this estate way back when, and the ruins of the old distillery are still here. Back when Spain still controlled Mexico, they outlawed the production of vino de mezcal, which was the original name for what tequila would later become, but it was still produced in a lot of these estates similar to this one, but usually just for consumption of family and friends.
Just a white guy walking down an agave.
And after exploring the agave fields and the old distillery ruins, we got to flex our mixology muscles a little bit and made some cocktails for everyone. We even got Doug involved in it. All before we had Lou judge and decide who was the winner.
This is delicious.
It's a muddled strawberry, absinthe, lime, XA.
Nice.
Yeah.
And he paid me the most on Venmo, so I'm going with this guy right here.
Let's make an incredible original cocktail of mine, the Big Lou's Surprise. So the first thing we're gonna do is grab our shaker, and then you're gonna wanna grab a nice juicy strawberry. I'm gonna get a nice big one here. We're just going to cut the top off of it. I might have cut a little bit too much. Put it in your shaker, and we're going to muddle that. But before we muddle that, we're actually going to add some sal de gusano, which is agave worm salt. Yes, you heard that correctly. This is made with actual worms. It's the little worms that grow on like agave plants. And so we're gonna do, while we're muddling this, we're gonna do about like 2 pinches of sal de gusano. You don't wanna do too much, but just enough to elevate these flavors of strawberry. And so like, what does it taste like? Well, this one has some good spice, some chili, salt, and you got this like earthiness to it, and a very particular kind of like savory flavor. Obviously it's salt, but it's really tasty. And now we're gonna muddle up our strawberry. We're gonna get it nice and just muddle this up so we can infuse the strawberry flavor with the sal de gusano. We're gonna do 3/4 of an ounce of freshly squeezed lime juice, a 1/2 ounce of simple syrup just to get some of that sweetness in there. And then we're gonna do 3 dashes of absinthe. I think absinthe and strawberries go really well together. If you wanted like a measurement, I would say maybe a little bit less than 1/4 of an ounce of absinthe. And I'm using St. George's Absinthe Vert, which I love. And now, of course, for the star of the show, we're gonna do 2 ounces of Volcán's XA. And their XA is a blend of their aged expressions. It's really nice. It's got that great, incredible caramelly, oaky flavor from the barrel, but also the agave really shines through in this one. It's a really nicely well-made tequila. And they let us play with a bunch of this while we were there. So obviously I was gonna use this bottle. So we'll do 2 ounces of this. Ooh. Add some ice, and lock it up and shake it up. And we're gonna grab a nice low ball, a nice clear cube, and then we're gonna double strain this right out. Oh wow, look at that color. And then we're gonna garnish with a dehydrated lime. That day I garnished it with the lime wheel, but I think the dehydrated lime works really well. And there you have a Big Lou's surprise. So tasty. The strawberry gives it that nice fruity flavor. The absinthe gives it that nice herbal complexity. The sal de gusano really elevates the flavors and gives you a little bit of like a tiny little smoky flavor. Obviously the lime, nice and tart, but the Volcán XA just really shines through, and it's absolutely the star of the show. You still taste all of the incredible flavor from it. It's actually just accentuated by the rest of the flavors. And this is a cocktail I'm really proud to have come up with, especially because I came up with it kind of on the spot. So the next day we got to go to their distillery and see where the magic really happens.
That volcano is right there. Everywhere you look, it's right there, which is awesome.
Their master distiller Marcelino showed us the entire process step by step. And what was the most incredible was just how many tools they have in their arsenal to work with. They had hornos or ovens to cook the agave, but they also had autoclaves. They had a shredder to shred the agave, but they also had a traditional tahona. They have stainless steel fermentation tanks. They also have wooden fermentation tanks. And all of that just shows that the possibilities are limitless for them to create cool new products. And the tahona is a key example of that. ¿Cuál es la mayor diferencia entre usar una tahona y no usar una tahona? ¿Cuáles son los beneficios de la tahona?
De acuerdo. Prohibido usar la tahona, primeramente es la molienda. La extracción y el machacamiento que tú realizas en el agave es la fricción entre la piedra volcánica conjuntamente con la piedra laja del piso. Es una extracción suave y lenta. A comparación de un tren de molienda, tú en 2 horas mueles un horno, 3 horas. Aquí me llevo día y medio para la extracción de este jugo. La vuelta de la tahona, aproximadamente por cama que tú pones, son de 35 a 40 vueltas. Y se le rocía un poco de agua para extraerle el jugo correctamente a la tahona. Entonces, el terroir que te da, ese machacamiento o maceramiento que te da el agave, la extracción del agave, te da un jugo con características diferentes. Totalmente al terroir de la tierra, con la combinación entre los minerales de la piedra tahona, conjuntamente con la piedra laja, conjuntamente con el peso de la piedra tahona y la fricción, va mezclando ese terroir de minerales de la zona valles, conjuntamente con el jugo cocimiento de mampostería. Y sí es una gran diferencia. E inclusive en la fermentación tú empiezas con un jugo más denso y al finalmente tú extraes, como lo han probado en el producto final, el dulzor que tiene, la viscosidad, brillantez, etcétera, es mucho más densa en términos generales. Aquellas fibras, agua, no tiene azúcar. De ahí, como si tú pruebas el bagazo, lo que te comentaba el resto final ahí, te queda un 30% de jugo. Porque la extracción que hace la piedra con la piedra laja no se compara a lo que es un molino, ¿no? Esto es mecánico totalmente, ¿no? Y eso es artesanal, ¿sí? Que los tienes en el proceso final, desde aquí lo estás obteniendo. O sea, grábate esto, en tu perfil final lo encuentras. Estos aromas, es delicioso, la verdad.
Sí.
Como te decía, te huele a tierra mojada, te huele a minerales, te huele al dulce del agave, el agave cocido. Y allá te grabas el agave crudo, que también en tu primera base, si das un sorbo grande a tu nariz, tienes el agave crudo. Sí. O sea, son procesos únicos que al final de cuentas haces un ensamble final de algo perfecto.
Sí. Y eso es la mágica, ¿no?
Sí, es una parte mágica, sí es, y no fácil de conseguir.
Sí. What I think is incredible is like what Marcelino was saying. It's the contrast between the, you know, the agave shredded here and then the agave that they are pressing with the tahona. It's like really funny that they're right next to one another, so you can actually see it pretty much like side by side, and it's fascinating.
And getting to watch that process was just incredible. And we even got to try some tequila direct from the tank. And then we got to see what really blew me away, the barrel room. This place was massive.
This is absolutely insane. The barrels just go on forever. It's nuts. This is giant. This is crazy.
And later that day, we went to another estate that the family owns that had ruins of another very old distillery, which was at least 300 years old as well. And we got to explore and really get to see this whole space.
It's not a distillery anymore. It's just a bunch of cows hanging out, which is cool. But, you know, it used to be a long time ago. There's still some remnants of that, like right there. That tower, it doesn't look that big from the road, but it's giant.
As I stood there in awe, looking at all of these ruins, I couldn't help but think about how much our world has changed in the last 300 years. And yet one thing that hasn't changed all that much really is the way that tequila is made. People are still producing this incredible spirit in, relatively speaking, the same way. Everything we saw in their modern facility, you could see ruins of what was likely those same processes and equipment at this other estate.
Over there, those were the hornos where they used to cook the agave. And that was like the entrance. And it's just crazy. It's the fact that this was a tequila distillery like 200, 300 years ago. And it's right next to their other farm. And I mean, just getting to be here in this old distillery, where it hasn't been one in hundreds of years, probably, just based on, you know, how everything looks at this point, falling apart. But it's really just brings you back to like the very earnest part of making tequila and how it's actually been around for so long. And it's crazy. It's crazy to think about that the ancestral method of making tequila was around for so long. It's changed, and now there are brands bringing it back and doing it the right way, the traditional way, the artisanal way. Please forgive my hair; it looks insane. Right. I rode on the back of a truck. What do you expect? And so, if you just think about the fact that, you know, 200 years ago, when this place was in prime, pristine condition, like this is where they would have the tahona and go around in a circle and crush the agave, is the same way that some brands are doing it today. Yeah, the ancestral way, the way that it's always been made for the last several hundreds of years. Like, it's incredible to be able to be here. And what we were talking about is that underneath all of this, there most likely is fermentation pits or tanks or something along those lines, just because of the sheer size of this former distillery. And what's beautiful too is that the mountains are still in the background. And the volcano, can't really see it right over there. It's right up there. And so it's nuts, right? We think about tequila in the sense of, oh, it's this brand, it's the spirit that's exploded over the last 10 years or whatever. But they've been fucking making this spirit for like 400 years. And there were just a very few families doing it back then. Shout out to Lucas and Greg, who's on the trip, for helping fill in the history for me as well. But like, this is crazy, man. Like, this is a giant distillery that used to make and produce tequila back when it first started kind of becoming a thing. Like, this is history. This is, yeah, sure. The brand Volcano has been around just for a couple of years in terms of like the modern name and everything like that. But the family that owns this land that we're on right now, the land that I've showed you that we've been at, and all the farm, like, they've been the ones who've owned this land for hundreds of years. So it's like their family has been producing tequila for a really long time. Like, it's crazy. Like, look at this. That's old. It's very old.
And this is one of the things I love so much about tequila. There's real history and heritage, and it tells the story of people over many, many years. And long may this tradition continue.